Dr. Pepper and Friends, where grit, grace, and wholehearted living come together. And now, here's Dr. Pepper.
Hey, every now and then a brother's just got to change his work environment. So welcome into Dr. Pepper and Friends, where grit and grace come together for wholehearted living. And today on this episode, we're starting a little bit of a stint in parenting. And I am thrilled to have Aron Strong with us. He is the director and owner of Pathways Behavioral Health in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and also a part of In Relationship. I've gotten to know him through helping him with some retreats that are created for connection that he and Lindsay Castleman will do a couple of times a year there in Brentwood, Tennessee. And just thrilled to call him a friend. So I've known him a few years now. So today we're going to talk a little bit about just parenting, and everybody kind of has this spectrum, it seems, that on one end you have a parent that wants to be really strict and disciplined, and the other parent seems to be permissive. And we're going to look at the dangers of either extreme, but also how you might be able to find yourselves in the middle and be extremely imperfect as parents, which are the exact parents that your child has. So thank you so much, Aron Strong, for being with us, and tune in right now. So we welcome in Aron Strong, and so glad that you are with us. This is Dr. Pepper and Friends, so we count you as an old friend. That doesn't make any reference to your age. It's just we've known each other for a few years, and we met when I was able to assist you and Lindsay Castleman in Creative for Connection workshop that happens a couple of times a year, I think, and you've got one coming up, and probably by the time this airs, that one will have been done. But we've got, I think you guys do them every September and also in February.
Yep, that's right. So our next one will be coming up in February. Registration's already open for it. Well, we're so excited that this one in September is already sold out. And we've been doing them for 10 years. So we've been doing this quite a long time now. This is our 10th anniversary. And we love it because we get to serve both couples, and we get to help train therapists and work on both sides to expand everyone's skills and abilities in that arena. So it's a really special thing for couples because they get, not only do they get some group dynamics, they get one-on-one experiences with a therapist, which is not therapy because it's a weekend experience, but you get someone who has some skills to help navigate some of these really tricky conversations. And so it's a really powerful weekend. We just love doing it.
Yeah, and you may describe a little bit more about it, because I would describe it as kind of a hybrid between an intensive, one-on-one kind of intensive, and also a teaching time. And a lot of times couples will get one or the other, but you're really getting
Right.
both in
That's
that, where there's an hour or so of teaching, and then you spend an hour just a couple with a single therapist, and get to work on the material that was just being taught. And talk a little bit about the name of it and where it comes from, and what couples could expect.
Yeah, so it's Created for Connection. That was a book written by Sue Johnson, who created emotionally focused therapy, and Kenny Sandifer, one of her significant regional trainers in Middle Tennessee. And so they wrote this, and it was based on that therapy. It had a huge faith component. Created for Connection did, and so we kind of based it out of that framework. And so we walk through 7 conversations with couples, and we help them kind of understand why they get stuck in these kind of looping patterns, these disconnecting dialogues they seem to happen a lot, but they don't really get us anywhere, and we end up just kind of separated and hurt and don't know how to make it different. And so it's a really fun weekend. Well, it's a lot of work, but we love it as trainers because we get to engage as a group. So people come in, and there's not a lot of people there. It's not like hundreds of people. We usually have, I don't know, anywhere from like 13 to 9 couples, somewhere in that pocket. And so we have a group time where we teach, but we make it really interactive. And so it's not just a bunch of talking heads. Couples give feedback, and we draw a lot of information out. We process through some psychoeducation, some understanding about how these principles work and how they play out in our relationship dynamically. And then after we teach, then they get to go practice having that conversation with a therapist, with a facilitator that's going to help them not get stuck. Because I think that's the problem with a lot of other types of intensives is if you don't provided someone to help you, then you just get stuck where you always get stuck. And if you just go to a teaching time, then you get some information, but you still don't know how to put it into play. So we try to marry the best of both worlds so they get some individual experiences and talking with a facilitator. And then they come back as a group, and we don't ask them what they talked about, but we ask them what it was like to have a conversation like that. And so we get to each couple gets to hear other couples share things that really connect to their own experience. They're like, we're not the only ones who experience this. So there's a kind of a community that's driven, and each conversation kind of stacks and builds on it as we work towards kind of lighter things, and it kind of moves to more heavier things through the end of the weekend. Um, but we cover it's about 20 weeks of therapy in 2 days
Yeah, it
in
is.
terms of the ground we take as we cover. But yeah, we've always
And all day Saturday and all day Sunday, so from like
that's
8
right.
until 6 each day. So
That's
there's a
right.
lot. And kind of like I'll tell couples sometimes, I'll say, this is gonna be a lot of fun for me.
Yeah.
So, but it is, it really is. If there are words that I would use to describe it, it's safe,
Mm,
it's restorative, it's from a Christ-centered perspective.
sure.
So there's inspirational components to it, but that word is not the best word. That's the only one I can think of. It's much more meaningful than that.
Yeah.
They do a tremendous job. So we'll have some information about that in the show notes if you want to
Right.
reach out to Aaron or Lindsay, either one, for the next one that's coming up, and then we'll talk about some other things kind of at the end of the show, because a lot of times I get questions asked here in Jackson, Tennessee, about resources in Middle Tennessee, and I have stronger relations with people in Middle Tennessee than I do in the Memphis area, which is kind of oddly because we're closer to Memphis.
Sure.
Some fantastic resources that are there. We have people with college students at MTSU, at some of the other local schools there, and other family members that they're in the area too. So I'm so glad that we have you on, and we'll have information about some of those resources in the show notes as well. So what got my attention, I'm on an email with in relationship that Aaron sends out, and there was an email that came out just a couple of weeks ago that just made me get to thinking. One of the things that we talk about probably in every therapy session with anybody, anytime, is parents and parenting.
That's right.
And either we're talking about our family of origin and how we were parented, or we're talking about Aaron and I both in working with couples. We work so much with the process that couples, have, and learning to speak well to each other. But the content, I mean, the bulk of it's going to wind up being about home life and parenting and those kinds of things. And almost on any given week, I have a couple or a family that I'm dealing with that there's kind of a parents who are on two ends of the spectrum, and rarely are they on the same spot on the spectrum. But one is all about some discipline and being restrictive, and then the other is all about, just kind of let them make decisions for themselves and being permissive, and don't be too hard on them. And that comes out of so many different places. It comes out of families of origin and that kind of thing. But let's talk a little bit about that. Talk to me a little bit about the dangers of either end of that spectrum, and where boundaries and freedom and growth come in.
Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic because even if you don't have kids, you had parents, right? Or somebody raised you, caregivers, grandparents in terms of a spectrum. And so we all have some kind of experience in the impact of how parenting works. And it's, as you know, Pepper, it's like so common that you get complementary positions in couples, right? So one's more restrictive, one's permissive, and the restrictive one has to be that restrictive because the permissive one's so permissive, and the permissive one has to be so permissive because the other one's so restrictive, and right, and they're always kind of like almost in a battle over structure, or battle over that thing. But I think that it's the most common dynamic that happens in parenting of that difference. And I think that's good as a whole because it really ensures that there's kind of a boundary on both ends. If everyone's super restrictive, then there's kind of like no freedom at all. But if there's all freedom, there's no boundaries, right? And that's a whole different problem. So having that dynamic, I just want to help parents know that like that's actually very healthy that you have one on each side because it kind of holds it together in the middle. And that's what we're looking for. But each one kind of has its own consequence if it goes too far. Overprotective parents really are trying to ensure the success of their children. They don't want their children to suffer. They don't want them to experience the distress of failure. They want to set them up for success. But a lot of times that overprotectiveness actually inhibits a child's growth.
Hmm.
We know from research now that in secure attachments, the process of rupture and repair is really important. That idea of a sense of disconnect. So setting a boundary, like a restriction, it can be like a relational rupture because we're like, I want this. And they're like, no. And so that feels bad. And so a child has to manage that distress. But when there's a repair, that parent comes back and says, I know this is really hard. I don't, I want you to have good things, but this is just one of the rules. Then that sense of like, I'm with you in distress is really important. Really rigid parents will be like, nope, that's the rule. Go figure it out. That child carries a sense of distress, and the rule may be honored, but the relationship suffers. And so, overly rigid, overprotective parents in that way can leave a child feeling disconnected. But the other expression of high rigidity is when they're like so protective, like the helicopter parent that kind of doesn't let like they put this bubble around them and nothing ever happens to them. And so they never get to practice that sense of distress, that so they can feel what it's like to manage their own distress. They get to find the edge of their abilities of what they can do and what they can't do. And that helps them trust themselves around areas of competency and where their areas of failure might be. And they get to explore and find those edges and work at the edges. But when that overprotective parent shows up, then they don't ever get to experience that. And while that child will say, I had the greatest childhood, my parents loved me, we never fought, nothing bad ever happened to me, they also grow up with an insecurity in themselves because they've never been able to do anything on their own.
Right.
All the struggles were kept away. And so in adulthood, we see grown-ups with this deep insecurity of how do I trust myself because I was never trusted. My parent didn't trust me. They protected me from everything, which the child interprets as apparently I'm incapable because I'm never allowed. And
Yeah.
so there's no ability to engage.
Yeah. And then they're always just kind of testing the waters of every relationship and not really knowing what to expect and not having any confidence that they can show up.
Or they just expect their spouse to do everything for them. And their spouse is like, I'm not your parent. Like,
Yeah.
why do you expect me to do everything for you? And they're like, well, they just never had to do anything on my own before.
Mhm.
So then they're really ill-equipped to launch into the world because then they've left that nest and they never got to make that transition point where they begin to pick up the burden of responsibility and experience where all that distress lives and how to engage it and how to work through issues and those kinds of things that are so critical.
Yeah, and for so many parents out there who think, "Oh no, we're so far apart on this." I love what you said and what you wrote, which was it's not a deal breaker. It's a tension to be managed, and
Yes.
it's not a non-starter. It's actually a possible strength for your relationship.
Yeah, because you need both. You need structure and you need freedom. Boundaries are supposed to create freedom. That's the purpose of a boundary, right? Boundary is a circle, and in the circle, everything's free. I'll ask parents to be like, if you take your child to a stranger's house for a party or something like that, and you put the child in the backyard because they're going to go play in the backyard, but that backyard has no fence, how worried are you?
Mhm.
Right? Versus if there's a security fence in the backyard and you know they're contained, right? When there's a security fence, parents are like, "Go knock yourself out. You can't get anywhere." Like, and I don't have to check on that often. They're protected, and there's freedom in the protection. If there's no fence, they're like, who knows? Some stranger could walk on up, or they could just wander away. Who knows what's going to happen? So that sense of boundary creates a sense of freedom inside the boundary is the goal. And so when we have boundaries, then we want to enable freedom within the boundary for all of that flexibility, that exploration, that sense of failure, knowing that we can come attend and respond appropriately. But the boundaries aren't supposed to prevent. They're just supposed to create an environment where freedom and exploration can occur safely.
Yeah. Have you noticed any trends? And I'm not trying to throw a curveball here, but it comes up frequently, just in the difference in managing this tension in blended families,
Mm.
because there's kind of some patterns that have already been established by the time the other parent, whichever one that may be, comes into the scene. And I'm just wondering what you've noticed with that. The thing I see is that that parent who is new to the family has a different kind of responsibility, I think, to build relationship and to win respect in some ways in that dynamic. What do you think?
I think that the hardest thing often in blended complex families, that environment, is that a second marriage wants to be a first marriage. We want to come into it with all the freedoms without all the limitations that second marriages come with. And that's difficult, especially in the parenting realm, because, a step parent isn't that child's parent. They're this random person, their parent married, and now they're in the house. And so a lot of times step parents expect to be treated as equal to a parent, a biological parent, but they've not been around, that long, and they have a biological parent of that gender if they're engaged. And so that's very difficult to navigate that relationship, particularly if a step parent wants to come in and really kind of be a taskmaster and a rule setter, then it really kind of pits the step. There's not enough bonding that occurs. And so uh, um, often, usually in those environments, what we'll advise the step parent is you can make rules together privately, but then to the children, the step parent's just enforcing the parent's rules. This is your dad's rule,
Hmm.
right? I'm just, and if you don't like it, you can go talk to him. I'm not, because I'm just here to care about you. I'm here to provide. I'm here to do everything you need. I know you have a parent, but I'm here to care for you. And that bonding happens in the care aspect. But we have to reinforce the rules. But if the step parent says, this is my rule, then often that's a conflictual relationship off get-go. But if they leverage, there's a biological inherent relationship that occurs. It's the only relationship we have on planet Earth where the expectation or the bonding is inherent because you were born into it, right? It doesn't exist any other way. And
Hmm.
so step parents just don't get that. They have to earn that ability through care. But again, we can't sacrifice the boundary. So if they reinforce the biological parent, we're leveraging the biological parent's inherent authority as a biological parent. They can make those decisions together, like tell them you make them together, but in front of the kids, it's the biological parent's rule.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
supportive of that way because that biological parent is the one who has the authority. Often kids will push back against a step parent
Hmm.
because of the brokenness of the family. You're not my parent. Those feelings can come up. We just subvert all that. So then their posture is primarily one of care and support, and that allows all that bonding to occur with rules and boundaries being reinforced.
Yeah, and because that biological parent, or I guess the step parent comes in, there's not that money in the bank authority
Right.
that is an automatic given that the biological parent has.
Yeah. We often want like positional authority is the worst and weakest of all authority forms, right? I'm the parent, you have to do what I say. I'm the boss, I'm the manager at work, you have to do what I like. It's the weakest of authority. Relational authority has such more power.
Mhm.
Um, and we have to earn that relational capital to leverage against a relationship. Always like to say you can hold people accountable to the degree that they feel cared for, right?
Mhm.
Because accountability means repairing the relationship. If without care, it's just judgment, right?
Right.
Judgment and punishment. It's just brokenness.
Right.
So that care is so important to make sure that that support of the rules is bonded in relationship rather than it's positional. I'm the boss, and that's an inherent disconnect uh, in relationship, which they want, to feel that feeling. And then step parents feel rejected by the kids. They don't know. I don't know what happened. Like I came in and I was just setting, if it's a stepdad that was overly permissive and stepmom's like, I just tried to put some structure in the house because it needs some structure, but now I'm the evil witch and now I'm like, everyone hates me. But we just because they missed that part, they led with structure and the care was less apparent, or the biological parent didn't support it or didn't lead it. So then just a lot of things can kind of
Mhm.
unravel in that regard. And so we're
Yeah.
trying to set that up well.
Yeah, and presenting that unified front, either represented by that biological parent or when you have two biological parents, that unified front is still so important.
Oh
And
man.
be a part on a lot of different things. And I think my wife and I tried to operate by, I think it's an old Virginia Satir quote of, love each other more than you love your kids and be together on everything you do.
Hmm.
That's a way to raise a healthy kid,
That's
sometimes.
right. Because
Yeah.
that's a good model. Even in co-parenting, right? We know from research that the more consistent biological parents' homes are, the more consistent they are with rules, structure, timing. If they're grounded here, they're grounded here. Like completely like almost negates, it doesn't completely negate, but nearly negates the impact of divorce, right? Because the event's an injury, but it's still like I have parents and my experience is the same in both homes. It's like very normalizing. It's when they're so different. It's the disconnect that makes it so hard. And I think step families have that too, because there was an original family unit often. And when that unit is broken, then it's now a different environment with a new parent coming in and they have to adjust to all the newness, not
Mhm.
just in the marriage they do, but also the whole family has to adjust to newness and the other family has to adjust to the new. Like there's just a lot of transition. So coming in that supportive way versus a really authoritarian way allows that bonding to occur, but
Yeah.
still maintaining structure, rules and structure.
Okay, so parents, there is some grace right ahead here, but this is good, okay? Because Aaron, we have parents that come in every single week and they say, "I am screwing my kid up. I'm blowing this whole thing up." And you have five universal truths, okay?
Yes.
So drop those on us. I think these are fantastic.
Yeah. So I was trying to find a humorous way to normalize the process of parenting. And so I said, I got five universal rules of parenting. The first one is no one knows what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
It's not a rule to follow, it's a rule that just exists. It's like the law of gravity. Like you don't have to try to follow the rule of gravity, it works all by itself, right? That's what these rules are like. No one knows what they're doing, right? You were parented some way, but if you've never been a parent, everything's brand new, right? And even if you've been a parent of a 5-year-old, then you have another kid, like you know what it's like to be a parent of a 5-year-old because that kid gets older, but you've never been a parent of a 10-year-old or a six. Like there's
Yeah.
always this newness of discovery that happens, and so we're just trying to figure it out. And so there's no universal rule that tells you exactly how to do it. Nobody knows what we're doing. We're all figuring it out every time. So that's the first one.
Yeah, somebody told me about a mom that had a saying on her desk or something like that that just said, I'm just a girl trying to figure out how to live this next new day of my life."
Right.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things are super complicated in how all that plays out. So um, the second rule then is that you will do to your kids what your parents did to you,
Mhm.
except for the things you just were never going to do. Right? We
Yeah.
all have those things like I'm not doing that, and we're very intentional, so we don't do that, but we do everything else, right?
Yeah.
So you do what was done to you. That's your expectations. If you had a really restrictive parent, you may become a very permissive parent, or you're going to be restrictive just like your parents were, because that's how it's done. Like that's the if you don't eat your peas, you sit at the table until your plate is empty. That's the rule. That's how it goes.
Mhm.
Why? Well, because that's what I had to do, right? Because that's how it works. And so that we grow up in these rules and structure, and our brain like forms itself around it. So all of our expectations are just lived and practiced. So it's just rote memory. So
Yeah, and I think like for me, I was one of those that probably vowed to do everything just the opposite of how my parents may have done.
sure, right.
And yet I still hear them coming out in me. That was my stepdad, or that was my mom's voice I just heard. And
Yeah.
even when you vow not to, sometimes it still comes out because it's rote.
Well, you practice something for, 16 to 20 years. I mean, that's going to stick in your brain a little bit, right? You're not even thinking about it. It just comes out. You just practiced it. So I just want to help parents know, like, that's a normal thing. It's not normal doesn't mean good. It just means it happens. It happens to everybody. So it's okay. And if you becoming aware of it, it'll let you pick, but you'll
Hmm.
just find yourself doing stuff.
Yeah.
The third one I like because there's often like you look at online or social media, and there's these people that just seem like these great, perfect parents, right? And everything's easy for them. And you're like, what am I doing wrong that these people are doing so right? And what I discovered is that really people who have compliant children think they're good parents, and people who have more non-compliant children think they're bad parents. That's just it's more about the kids you got of how good a parent you think you are, right? If you're like do this and they go do it, and you're like I'm an amazing parent, and if you say go do this and they're like no, you're like I'm a terrible parent. Like what happens? But it has a lot to do with the personality of the child of just how willing to go along with the rules they are.
Yeah. All right, number four.
Number four, everyone screws up their kids like themselves. It's just what happens. It's what we already said in rule two. Like, you're going to do what was done to you. You're going to do that to them, it just carries down the chain.
My kids will tell you this, but a refrain that I gave them, especially when I had two teenage boys, was that I would say, "Hey, I am just keeping some therapist in business someday."
That's right. Parenting is a therapist's security, right? It's right there. But it's also we get parents, they'll be like, I'm just so worried I'm going to damage my child in some way, and we're just like, you will. It's
Yeah,
okay. Like, because everybody does. It's like we're not trying to. Even those parents, I've had people come in and they're like, no, I had this great childhood, right? My parents never argued. Everything was always love. Everything was great. And I'm like, so you never saw your parents argue? They're like, no. Like, how did you guys resolve problems? Oh, we never had problems. I'm like, well, that doesn't exist. So you just never talked about problems and we just acted like everything was fine. They're like, right. I'm like, that's a problem.
yeah.
No idea how to resolve conflict.
Yeah. When I was working at a treatment facility, there was a meeting that usually took place on Fridays, and I called it the meeting of the dark nights. It was myself and two other guys, and all three of us were talking about how we were probably going to kill our teenage boys or that they were going to kill us, one of the two. And it was myself and our development director and one of the top adolescent psychiatrists in the state. And all of us, you would think, had some collective knowledge, but when it's live, it's kind of like the Mike Tyson quote: when it goes live, you have everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
That's right. And
And
so we're just always trying to like figure it out. Now we want to do the best we can. Like we all will do the best we can, but we're not, your parenting is an inherently imperfect science because you being raised by an imperfect person,
yeah,
right? And this is how it goes, which is my rule 5, which is every child needs a perfect parent and all they got was you.
that's right. That's great.
None of us are perfect. All of us have gone astray. Like we all struggle. We all get stuff. And you're trying to do the best you can. And that child will learn from that. And then they're going to try to do the best they can. And that's just how it works.
Yeah, that is priceless. Well, Aaron Strong, thank you so much for being with us. Tell us about some of the things you like many of us, are doing several different things. We talked a little earlier about Creative for Connection.
Yeah.
There's Pathways, which is there in Murfreesboro, and for our Jackson folks, let's not confuse that with Our Pathways. It's
Ah,
not connected at all. We have one that's part of our local hospital, and
yeah.
they do a fine job for what they have to do, but this is not
Yep.
the same thing.
Nope.
So tell us a little bit about Pathways and In Relationship, and you've got some CE courses that are coming up as well.
Yeah. So Pathways is my private practice. We got about 11 folks on staff with graduate interns, and that allows us to have kind of a spread of fees. Interns are a little more less expensive, pre-licensed, licensed, and so it gives us a good spectrum. Very grounded in kind of attachment science and relationships. So individual stuff, interpersonal stuff. Locally, we're kind of known as the folks if they don't other therapists don't know what to do, they kind of send them to us because we can work at some deeper levels. So that's a lot of fun. I love my team. We're great. And then in relationship with Lindsay, as you mentioned before, we do marriage intensives twice a year in February and September. We have for therapists, we have a faith and attachment member group that talks about attachment science perspectives in therapy, but about how to integrate faith into that. In support of that, we also have a podcast, The Christian Therapist, that talks about doing therapy and how faith informs that and how faith we can integrate faith in a way that's appropriate, that isn't like preaching but supportive. And so that podcast is fun. And then we recently became a CE provider, which for continuing education. All therapists have to get so much continuing education to support their license each year. And so we have some online courses, about 14 different courses that we're about to launch on the website. So you can watch them online. We're going to increase our live trainings that we do on all kinds of working with betrayal or working with disorganized attachment or working with all kinds of different types of topics, dissociation, things that are just things that we can't really find trainings for other places. We try to do the ones that are harder to find.
Mhm.
And so that's a lot of fun. So we stay busy.
Okay, well, fantastic. We're going to have information for Aaron in each of these ventures that he has in the show notes, and we'd be glad for you to reach out and get in touch as you may have need. But Aaron, thank you so much for your time and just gracing us with your presence uh,
Uh,
during this hour. So thanks a bunch.
Thanks, Pepper. It's always fun to talk with you.
Thank you very much, Aron Strong, for being with us today and such good wisdom. We appreciate your willingness to graciously give your time today. So I hope you'll take this to heart and realize that it's really okay to not be perfect, and you're probably gonna jack your kids up in some kind of way. I used to tell my kids, hey, I'm just keeping some therapists in business someday. But I think if you have a relationship with them and you love them well, then there's some grace that is afforded to you as parents too. So thanks a lot for tuning in, and hey, check out the show notes below. There's some free stuff that I want to give you. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so. We really love to know that you're out there, whether you subscribe to the YouTube channel or to the podcasts on Apple or Spotify. They're available on all of those. So thanks a lot for being with us.